Okay, so here we are live once again with another Masters of the Universe Origins unboxing, and this is from the Turtles of Grayskull line, and it's Man at Arms. So I hadn't opened like too many of these Turtles of Grayskull figures. In fact, I'm pretty sure the only one I've opened so far has been the Shredder. And honestly, that was because I thought that was a really good action figure of the Shredder, not necessarily because of like any of the He-Man crossover type stuff. Although that was a figure that used a lot of the Masters of the Universe aesthetic, reused a lot of parts from the Origins line, like the basic body is like the basic He-Man body with just some Skeletor or sorry, some Shredder parts put onto it. The Shredder's armor looks kind of like Skeletor. It uses the boots from Hordak. By the way, it says on the packaging something about like him having a secret ally. Well, the secret is revealed if you take off the armor on his boots, and you can see the evil Horde emblem still underneath from when they were Hordak's boots. So obviously, he was working with Hordak. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, so they've got figures of the Ninja Turtles that are kind of in a more He-Man type style, but I hadn't really been feeling those, so I hadn't really gotten any of those. Maybe I'll change my mind later. Who knows? We'll see. I definitely was not a fan of like the evil mutant version of He-Man. I was not feeling that at all, so did not pick that up. But I did think this was a pretty cool version of Man at Arms. Not necessarily like, what anybody would think of as like the definitive version of Man at Arms, I think. But if you're looking at him as like kind of like a samurai variant on Man at Arms, and I believe they did do a samurai variant on Man at Arms in the 2000X line. And there's some other things that I like about this figure that we're going to get into. So here's the piece of artwork on the back. It's a nice piece of artwork with Man at Arms fighting Krang, or at least the Turtles of Grayskull version of Krang, who looks like he's kind of combined with Megator a little bit. And this, I think, is this is a tri-language package, so it doesn't have like a whole lot of text on the background to explain what's going on, unfortunately. But I did get it cheap off of Amazon. The package is kind of damaged, so it's probably because A, the package was damaged, and B, it's the tri-language package. Lone Dragon says, you want the Mikey with the He-Man wig. Yeah, like here's the thing. Like I've seen that in the store, and I didn't think that was actually kind of funny. I kind of laughed at that. But the thing that would make me want that is if it actually is a wig on the if it actually removes. So I'm gonna have to look it up. If the wig actually comes off, like it's actually an accessory, like he's wearing a wig, then I will definitely want to check that out. CJ Benelia says, "Hey Alan, well hey right back to you. I hope I didn't butcher your name too bad." I don't like mispronouncing people's names, so I try my best. I honestly do. People mispronounce my name all the time, and it's literally 4 letters, Belk, and I get Bell, I get Belt, I get Beck, and I'm like, it's 4 letters, dude. Just like the store, Belk. There, easy. All right, so let's go ahead and open them up since there's not really anything to read on here, and pull him out of there. And if I did get Michelangelo, I would have to get all the rest of the Ninja Turtles also. I would have to get the rest of the Ninja Turtles. So I'm not gonna just have Michelangelo. It's it's one of those unfortunate things where every how do I put this? I usually use this as like a metaphor or for talking about something else, and somebody's got to be your 4th favorite Ninja Turtle, and that's Michelangelo for me. And it's not that I dislike Michelangelo. It's not like I'm like Michelangelo sucks or anything like that. No, Michelangelo's cool. I love all the Ninja Turtles, but somebody's got to be your 4th favorite. And my number 1 favorite is Raphael. My number 2 favorite is Leonardo. My number 3 favorite is Donatello. So that's where we're left at. Captain Have Fun says, "Hey, thanks for doing these. Let's shoot for this weekend." Right now I'm scheduled to be off for Sunday, but I don't know if it's going to remain that way. So, uh, we'll see what we can. I'll get in touch with you. We'll see what we can do. So, since this is a tri-language comic, it doesn't have any dialogue in here. It does have some really nice artwork. This is a great splash page here with the boys meeting Man at Arms Roboto and a very cute Tila. They did a nice job with drawing her. That's a very nice Tila, kind of J. Scott Campbellish. And then got Krang and the Shredder, and they're obviously like arguing like an old married couple like they do. And Tila is getting and Man at Arms also getting dressed out into their ninja type outfits. And I guess Man at Arms was inspired in his design of these by the Ninja Turtles themselves, since it does have some Ninja Turtle styling to it, some turtle shell styling. We'll get to that in a bit. I probably should get that Tila just because I do like Tila. All right, and then Skeletor and our Eternia style versions of Krang and Shredder, and then the evil mutant version of He-Man. All right, so it's a pretty thick comic for what we usually get. Unfortunately, I can't get into the hows and whys of why Man at Arms designed his armor this way because there's no dialogue on here. But here's an extra armor piece for his other shin. Like most Man at Arms figures, this guy has more armor on his right hand side than his left hand side. So that's pretty typical for Man at Arms. Let's go ahead and cut these rubber tabs that are holding this guy in the package. And like I said, I got this one for cheap off of Amazon. You might still be able to find it for cheap on Amazon as well. I just thought it was like kind of a cool variant of Man at Arms, and while I was looking for cheap stuff on Amazon at the time, I was like, what the heck? I might as well pick him up. So there we go. I think that's all the rubber tabs. Let's go ahead and pull Man at Arms out of here. Now, right away, I'm going to tell you one thing that I really like about this figure. And if there's one reason to pick this figure up, it's this right here. Is he comes with like a giant freaking mace. That thing is huge. This is really cool. This would be a big mace for like a Masterverse or a Classics, and you're giving it to an Origins style figure. So that's pretty crazy. All right, go ahead and put that back in there so I can go ahead and get ready to throw that out. Before I get into that, I did get my latest package from Big Bad Toy Store in today, and I got some extra figures to play around with for custom purposes. So I got the Sorceress. She was really cheap on Big Bad Toy Store. That whole wave is really cheap. I guess Mattel made way too many of those. And I got an extra 2000X Skeletor and an extra 2000X He-Man. Both of those were in the tri-language packaging. And since I had an extra 2000X He-Man, I decided to play around with one of the extra Origins Prince Adams that I have. So now, before anybody says anything, no, this is not an exact replication of his look from the 2000X cartoon, because he's a bit more bulky. And I'm sure somebody's going to point out in the comments, oh no, he's supposed to be like a skinny little guy because he's like a young teenager in that version. Well, let's just pretend this is from like a few years after the 2000X show, and he's filled out a little bit. He's like comparing Miguel Diaz in the first season of Cobra Kai to Miguel Diaz in the last season of Cobra Kai. So the other thing that I noticed about they must have been like two different runs of this, is that the first one I got, you see his hair is more of sort of like the orangish shade of yellow, and the new one I got is more on like the tan shade of yellow. Personally, I prefer this color, so that's a good thing. So we'll go ahead and set those back aside now that I've talked about those for a little bit. And now, back to our regularly scheduled Man at Arms with a turtle shell. So he's got a turtle shell on his back, and that does remove. There's a couple of little holes in the back of his harness, and you see there's a couple of little pegs on the back of the shield, and then a handle so he can grab it. But yeah, he can put the shield on his back like a turtle shell. So, like I said, I think he was a little inspired by the boys to, you know, give it a little bit more of a turtley flavor. Am I not turtley enough for the Turtle Club? So I had this. Oops. Oh yeah, here's some other stuff that I got that in case you haven't seen. I don't remember if I talked about this at all. I got filament that's like the exact color of the original Castle Grayskull weapons. So I've been printing out Castle Grayskull weapons. All right, so since I pulled this off of the uh, the snake man at arms, you can see the colors are like really similar on this. Like how his blue is a little. Or, I keep saying blue. It's kind of a bluish green, but his green is a little darker and actually even a little more bluish. And the orange matches up pretty well, although on the turtles man at arms, it's a little more pearlescent. But since I have this extra arm piece and he doesn't have a forearm piece, hey, I can put that on my man at arms, can't I? So that looks pretty cool, doesn't it? All right, so let's go ahead and get him geared up and have a look at him with all of his weapons. And I do like that he comes with an extra shield, which is something that man at arms does not usually come with. But it's always been kind of funny to me that a guy who's like the master of weapons basically just comes with a club, which is like the simplest weapon you could possibly have. But but yeah, he's at least got a shield this time. That's why I stole this shield off of the Faker figure in Masters of the Universe Classics and gave it to Man at Arms. So so my Man at Arms has Faker's shield. Anywho, but that's what he looks like all geared up. So we can see that Man at Arms has a little bit more of a samurai look as far as the helmet goes, and he's got this big shoulder piece here, which would have come in handy actually a lot with the Snake Man at Arms, because then it would have looked like the huge 2000X shoulder piece if they'd bothered to give him one, which I think that would have helped with the aesthetic of this figure quite a bit. But and then also I really like this big furry piece here. Now some of the earliest production art and stuff, and you can see they had it on the Lords of Power armor that they used on this. Some of it had like fur trim around the armor, and if you remember the very first mini comic, oh, you don't have to remember, I can show you. The very first mini comic, actually, when Man at Arms first shows up in that story, that's He-Man and the Power Sword. The very first panel in which we see Man at Arms, Skeletor and Beastman capturing Teela. Skeletor explains his origin. We see him riding up in his battle chariot, which was an early design of the battle ram that did not get produced. They wound up redesigning it quite a bit. But you can see he's actually got this furry cape trailing out behind him in that panel. And it's gone in the next panel. He doesn't have it anymore after that. So so yeah, I always did like the look of that furry cape on Man at Arms. I thought that was really cool. So it's kind of neat how they sort of replicated it there. It's not quite as much of a cape. It's more of like a big collar, but it did kind of remind me of that particular version of Man at Arms, and I thought that was pretty cool. So if you wanted to have like more of the traditional Man at Arms look, what you could do is you could take off this samurai belt with the armor hanging down, and then he's just got the plain Masters type trunks underneath, and you can swap out this head for another Man at Arms head if you want him to look a little more of a traditional Man at Arms. So let's since we got the Snake Man at Arms here, let's go ahead and pop that off. Oops, I dropped his serpent claw. So we can pop that head on there and see what it looks like with that. And that gives us a little bit more of a classic take on Man at Arms. So that's kind of cool. But we're going to talk more about him being the samurai version, since that's the figure that we're reviewing right now. Oh, and I got to put this extra piece of armor on his leg. That didn't sound right. It's a little bit of a stress mark on his torso there, so it sounds like it didn't want to come off right when I pulled it off. But whatever, it's still staying together pretty well. I do like the samurai look of the helmet. I like the idea of having like a samurai man at arms. Like I said, they did that in 2000X, and it was a fairly cool figure. But I think this one probably actually did it even a little bit better. But he does have, like I said, some Ninja Turtle homage elements to it. You can see there's some Ninja Turtle, some turtle shell detailing to the shoulder piece and the shield, which also can become a turtle shell, and the knee pad there. And then this one should strap right to his other shin. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's unbuckle it. So, and again, it's not symmetrical because Man-at-Arms just does not want to be symmetrical for whatever reason. So, but it should just strap onto his other leg. Actually, it looks like it's maybe supposed to strap onto this leg that already has armor on it, but that wouldn't make any sense, would it? So go ahead and get that buckled around there. Is that even supposed to go on? Maybe that's supposed to be like an arm piece. I think that might be supposed to be an arm piece, actually. Well, that's weird. Why wouldn't they just have it on him in the package then? All right, so let's go ahead and see if it'll fit on his arm. It just looked to me a lot more like a shin piece. But I guess it's supposed to be for his arm. Okay. Again, the dude just does not like to be symmetrical. Even if it was a shin piece, it'd be like a completely different shape of a shin piece than, yeah, it's supposed to go on his arm. So, but then he's got the big shield. So I guess what we want to do is put the mace into this hand. And this is a long enough mace, you could almost get it into like a two-handed position, I think. Let's go ahead and try that. Yeah, you can get it into a two-handed position, but it's kind of like just frustratingly short enough that you can just kind of barely get it in there. Now, something I notice about this also is there's this little hole, like in the end of the mace. It looks like it's supposed to attach to something else. Does it say anything about that on the packaging? It does not. But I wonder if Donatello, his staff is kind of sculpted to look kind of like Man-at-Arms mace. So I wonder if those are supposed to attach together, if that's how that's supposed to work. Anyway, we'll just have to wait and see if I get the Donatello figure, if I can get that to work. Maybe I will buy these Ninja Turtle figures after all. All right, so we can put the shield into his right hand since his weapon is now in his left hand. And then he can protect the less armored right side of his body with the shield while he does battle with the left side. So at least that makes a little more sense in terms of like what you want to armor up, I guess. So anyway, let's go ahead and take the weapons out of his hand because now I want to talk about his articulation. Okay, so Man-at-Arms can only look up about that far. He does have this big samurai helmet on his head, so that kind of bumps into it. He looks up like a decent amount, but not as much as you might like. He looks down about that far, and then he's got his whole face kind of nuzzled into his chest armor, which again kind of reminds me a little bit of the original mini comic. So of course his arms rotate all the way around at the shoulders, and they move up about that far. But you've got this big armor piece there, so that's going to kind of the Lone Dragon says his armor makes more sense without the shield. Yeah, well, on the one half, like when they did the Filmation version, and that's what I like about Filmation versions of Man-at-Arms in action figure form. They put the armor on both sides so that because they like to have symmetrical designs so they could reuse the animation. the armor is the shield, he doesn't have to hold it. Well, he doesn't have to hold this either, because he can put it on his back. So, but yeah, I like him. I like him having extra weapons. That always makes me happy. So if he can come with like ray guns or swords or whatever, that's one of the things I really liked about the classics version is he came with like an extra ray gun and an extra sword and a bunch of other cool stuff. So yeah. Oh yeah, articulation. So he rotates all the way around the waist. He does have a single joint of articulation at the elbow, extends about that far, bends in about that far, rotates all the way around. And of course, the wrists rotate all the way around and have a horizontal hinge that moves back and forth like so. Man at Arms can kick forward about that far, which is about typical for a Master of the Universe Origins figure. Even though he's got this kind of skirt piece on here, it doesn't really seem to hinder it too much. It's nice and pliable, and that's just going to move around anyway. So, and then he's got a single joint of articulation at the knee, bends about that far, rotates all the way around. Boot cut, rotates all the way around. Ankle points down about that far, points up about that far, and then the foot rotates all the way around. All right, so that's it as far as articulation goes on this guy. One thing that I do think would have been cool for them to do with this, as far as like an extra little bit, is since he's got this big old helmet anyway, I think it would have been the armor side faces the enemy and the mace swings around from behind. Okay. I mean, like, still, I like him having a shield. It's not a bad thing to have extra weapons. Extra weapons are good. He's man at arms. He's the master of weapons. So have him come with more than one. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. So, I think this kind of popped up a little bit. I think that's supposed to be down a little further. So yeah, if they had made this helmet removable, I think that also would have been a cool thing to do. But I guess they didn't think to do that, or maybe the budget was just a little too high on this figure already. He's got a lot of cool parts, a lot of new parts that we haven't seen before. And I like having variants of characters that make sense. In the original vintage Masters of the Universe line, the only characters that we really got variants of were He-Man and Skeletor and Hordak. So I don't think we got any other variants of any figures. Unless we get into that whole mess with Teela and the Sorceress and the Goddess. And you could argue that Teela with the serpent headdress and everything was supposed to actually be the Sorceress. So technically, you got two Sorceress figures, but it's not really the. Lone Dragon says they should have gone all in Turtle Van plus Filmation Attack Track mashup. See, that would have been something that would have been awesome. And then, since they've got Ninja Turtle money behind them, they could actually make it so that they could have like some different parts, like maybe they just make a different roof or whatever to have the turtle shell portion on it, and then they could make just more of a plain roof and re-release it as an actual Filmation Attack Track. But then again, they did put out the Skeletor ship from Filmation. So, I mean, let's not discount the idea that they might actually make a Filmation Attack Track. It's possible, like it's. I wouldn't say it's outside the realm of possibility. It does not seem like a likely thing to see outside of like they could maybe do like a crowdfunding kind of thing. I think as a crowdfunding kind of thing, it could certainly be something we could see. But I wouldn't dismiss it outright. It's possible it might happen. We'll put it that way. So yeah, like I said, the only one of these I'd bought previously was the Shredder, and I really liked how the Shredder turned out. But it wasn't really enough to get me to go all in on this line. Now that I've got this guy in hand, he's pretty fun and pretty cool. And even though there are some obvious influences from those 4 sewer-dwelling, pizza-eating, martial arts practicing teenage reptile characters, it still doesn't look like it would be too out of place. Like if this was just a Man-at-Arms figure that they introduced as like a variant of Man-at-Arms and just called it like Samurai Man-at-Arms or something like that, I think that would be that would still be a cool figure. So maybe I'll pick up some more of these in the future. So who knows? I guess just keep your eyes peeled. Maybe I'll have some. Lone Dragon says they'll fuck it up if they do. $50 says the shield opens instead of the roof sliding back like it is in the cartoon. Pass. Well, I mean, just put your positive energy out there in the universe and see if maybe it'll pay off. Anyway, I think that's pretty much it for this guy. Next episode, I've still got a lot more Masters of the Universe stuff to open. I already mentioned how I got in a package from Big Bad Toy Store, and one of the things I got in here was I finally got Anti-Eternia He-Man, the most evil man in the universe. Oh, he is a sinister looking fellow. I was actually trying to learn a little bit more about this character, and I watched a video that Scott Toy Guru Nightlick wrote, or he did a video where he was talking about how like he was trying to pitch this character to Mattel back when he was overseeing the Classics line, and they refused to do it because they said it was racist. So, and he's like, he's not like a black guy. He's not like African American. He's like black, like so. But this is a German character. This is a character that was created originally for the German market. So, they probably weren't thinking about that at all, But back in the 80s. But I'm looking forward to opening this guy up. He should be a lot of fun to talk about. And so we got Anti-Eternia He-Man. We got Snake Face. We got the prototype versions. I don't know what they call those, drawing board or whatever, of Hordak and Grizzlor. Those should be interesting to discuss. We've got a bunch of Skeletor figures because I love Skeletor. So I've got I'm gonna save these Skeletor figures for last. You got a package today too. Oh, the A-Team van. Sweet. Awesome. Well, I'll look forward to seeing that. If you haven't already sent me pictures. I saw you sent me some kind of picture on Instagram, but I hadn't had a chance to look at it yet. I got up and I ate my breakfast and I went to shoot my video. He's made out of turpentine. Trick Brer He-Man. See, that's why Mattel was worried about that. Honestly, if I was the guys at Mattel and Scott Nightlick had pitched that to me, I probably wouldn't have said it was racist. I get it. You explained it to me. I understand it isn't actually racist, Scott, but I'm talking about the optics. The optics is what I'm talking about. It's not so much that I don't think you're racist for pitching this to me. I understand why you're pitching this to me. On paper, from a cost perspective, it's just another repaint of He-Man. It makes more sense. It makes a lot of sense to do it. I understand that He-Man is really popular in Germany, and this is an original German He-Man character that they would like to see a figure of. However, you can see how some people might look at this and be like, that ain't right, dude. Like you can see where I understand that's not where you're coming from, but you can see how somebody might think that's where you're coming. You see what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying. Lone Dragon says, I never really cared for Anti-Eternia He-Man or Nemesis Prime. Lazy. Yeah, well, as far as doing a figure of him goes, yeah, I absolutely agree. But he actually comes from some German audio dramas. They sold a lot of German audio dramas over there in Deutschland, and that was something where apparently the second biggest market for Masters of the Universe in the entire world is actually Germany. So that was part of the reason he wanted to do that. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. But that was part of the reason he wanted to do that, was because he wanted to throw a bone to the German fans and show his appreciation for the German fans. And I know He-Man is really popular, like down in Mexico and South America too. And you have like exclusive characters to that region of the world, like Camo Con, and they've done different variations on Camo Con here in the United States as well. But the main reason is so like when they do sell those figures overseas, like a German fan would see Anti-Eternia He-Man, and it would hit them right in the nostalgia button in a way that it would not for people, say, here in the United States where I am, or say Canada, would have no idea who Anti-Eternia He-Man is. And likewise, I never saw CamoCon until I saw the internet. But that's again, it's a pretty easy figure to do. It's just basically just a repaint of Cobra Con, but with Buzz Off's claws. So anyway, that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back tomorrow with Anti-Eternia He-Man, and we'll talk more about like that character and what's up with him. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. All the fun YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about both this figure and Man-at-Arms in general. I really love that big honking huge mace. I might try to get a second one of these if they're still cheap on Amazon, just so I can give that mace to my regular Man-at-Arms figure. Because let's face it, the original mace that came with the 80s figure is kind of puny, and this one is just the opposite of puny. Oh, and hey, look, it's got a little bit of turtle shell detailing on the top of that too. So they did have. Hey, Max, good to see you. But unfortunately, we're just about at the tail end of the episode. But thanks for stopping by. Always good to see you. And we will talk to you next time. Bye.